Hi, everyone, and welcome to this fireside chat on how to get people excited about AI governance. Yes, really. My name is Triveni Gandhi, and I am the Senior Manager for Responsible AI at Dataiku. I'm joined today by Harold Mitchell from the American Bureau of Shipping. Harold, thank you so much for joining us today. If you could just give us a quick intro about yourself and the work you're doing at ABS.
Sure, Triveni. So my name is Harold Mitchell, and I am Manager of Machine Learning Operations at American Bureau of Shipping. And American Bureau of Shipping was founded in 1862, and we're based in Houston, Texas. And we are a global leader in classification, certification, and innovation for marine and offshore industries. And I work for the Data and Analytics Department. And in that department, we support internal departments by leveraging AI and data engineering to empower our business to achieve success. And some of the AI ML challenges we've been dealing with deal with survey resource forecasting, type approval, and we have some security chatbots and things like that. So we have an array of AI work that we're doing and had a great need for governance.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of excitement around AI, ML, all the kinds of things that you mentioned ABS is doing. But there is also this need for governance, which is it was funny to hear you say that because usually the idea of AI governance is kind of met with some resistance. So why did ABS sort of pick up on governance as something really important for the company for your organization?
Well, quite honestly, Trevini, it was met with resistance here
Okay.
because it was just seen as compliance and burdensome. And so to kind of get around that, we had to introduce it in a way as it was a way of working. And I remember when you first came to me, we had to have something on the table. We had to have a way of working for this thing to work. Because if you had just brought it to us and we didn't have a way of working, this is not magic. And so the starting point was having a way of working, the way that we did our processes, and then we were able to align governance with that.
Yeah, so for some context here, Harold and I work together to help implement a governance sort of program at ABS. And I remember that when when we first met on this topic, right, there was this notion of we want accountability and transparency for our projects. That was like sort of the core tenet for the governance. But you knew that you were going to hit some roadblocks, right? People were going to see this as a sort of a blocker and we wanted to make sure that people were bought in on that. So you mentioned, kind of not having a magic fix and not having anything, you've got to have something that you're bringing to the table and some sort of structure around it. So how did you guys actually build governance into your existing processes, rather than forcing some sort of new system?
Well, the tool allowed us to comfortably, conveniently integrate our what we call AI operating model. And so when we did that, and we were able to also integrate some ISO in there, we were able to build a nice structure. And then the key became transparency. And so what we were able to do was to engage our business stakeholders in the process and our product managers. And then that began to gain traction within the organization.
Yeah, and so I think, you mentioned the tool. I think for reference, right, Harold, you're talking about our Dataiku govern node and specifically the advanced govern node, which
Yes,
allows for customizations.
yes.
So what were the key areas of customization that were important for ABS? I know you mentioned ISO. I think we talked about the EU AI Act also being something of interest to ABS, but were there aspects of your sort of operating model that you really needed to make sure we're getting into this sort of tool? And how did that sort of, I guess, how did that help link you back to these teams that were originally giving you resistance?
So users and stakeholders are not normally engaged in our projects. Uh, when you look at the beginning of the end of the project, that's kind of their engagement level. But with this tool, we were able to engage them at the very beginning and throughout the process. And because the tool allows for high customization, we were able to structure it in a way that exactly aligned with our process. And so, in doing that, with the alignment of our process, with the engagement of our stakeholders, and with the buy-in from our product managers, that was a winning ticket to help us achieve success of governance and the usage of the advanced govern node.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, that's sort of bringing people into the beginning of the process and not as like a you're just a client, so you're just getting something delivered, but rather you are a part of this process.
That's
And I
right.
think, yeah, and I think that's something we see a lot of our clients where change management is hard, but with the right tooling, that change doesn't have to feel so big. It's, we're still using the same operating model that we use every day, but now we're just kind of executing on it in a different environment. But there's still familiarity, and that kind of helps, I think, transition people over.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah. So have you seen any sort of uptick in interest in governance then as a result of what you've been working on? Or, are you getting new kind of teams and internal clients knocking and saying, "Hey, we want to be a part of this too"?
Yes. So the big win for us here at ABS was bringing in the product managers. The
Okay.
product managers run our projects. And so when they became engaged, when they were allowed to get in the tool and use it for their user requirements, and use it for different aspects of the AI operating model, which is the model that we do our AI projects with. When they were able to utilize the tool and complete their work and their tasks using the tool, and then after all work was finished, having a sign off available to be able to check off and make sure everything was done correctly. That was very important to get the product managers aligned with the tool, and it was a big success too because it was no longer governance, but it became like a way of working and a way of efficiently doing our projects.
Yeah, so like in some ways you might see a sign off as like a requirement to go into production or requirement to move forward, and you might see that as a blocker, but instead it sounds like you guys have transformed that into something as like a part of the process, a step in the road, so to speak, and helps kind of structure that kind of approach to building.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. And
awesome.
and one other thing that that was beneficial was even though most of our projects are low risk, we were able to capture some of the EU requirements and prepare our releases for any possible regulatory challenges that might lie ahead.
Yes. That's an interesting point because I think that oftentimes you tell people we're going to implement an AI governance system, and that comes across as, oh, you're just going to lock us down and you're going to put a box on everything we do and we won't have any more freedom. But when you're able to distinguish that, well, no, look, this project has a different level of risk than this one. And we want to make sure that those high risk use cases are getting addressed correctly, but your low risk use cases maybe we're a little less stringent about, or we have different kinds of processes we're going to do. That also is a kind of a nice way to bring in some buy-in, so to speak. People aren't afraid that you're just going to stop them. And it sounds like
Yes.
that was something you guys were able to kind of negotiate as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then I haven't mentioned too much the business stakeholder, but for them especially to be engaged, to have to be asked to oversee some of the deliverables, which oftentimes have been, hidden from them. That was important to allow them into the system and allow them to see the kind of work that's going on and see the progress that's being made and judge for themselves if it's adequate and feasible to make the project go on. And that was very important to buy in, to buy in for the project overall. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So now that you are basically an expert on how to get people excited about AI governance,
Yes.
I'd love it if you could give us some takeaways, right? For folks out there who are watching that are just getting started on this journey, what do you think are the most important lessons to take away from this?
Okay. So the important lessons are number one, you will likely meet resistance.
Mm,
But if you can make the argument for transparency and accountability, that will go a long way. Number two, you must bring something to the table to get started. If you don't have a structured way of working, then governance is just going to complicate things and add frustration. So definitely have a way of working before you even start this journey. And then third, I would say that you have to quickly identify your alliances, your allies. They're likely to be your project or product managers because they are the ones that can promote the projects, the execution of the projects. And so if you can align with the project and project managers, and then get them on board and get them using the tool, I think that will go a long way in helping you to achieve success.
I think that's spot on and reflects a lot of what I've seen also in the market. And all those things kind of work together, by getting your buy-in from your product managers, you are showing them how, hey, we're actually going to align to your existing ways of working, or we're going to take your existing way of working and maybe tweak it and improve on it slightly, but it's not going to be this huge lift, right? We're not trying to overhaul a system so much as we're trying to refine it. And in
Right.
doing so, we're going to give you transparency, accountability, making it easier for you to get your products out the door. And those kind of all link together.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
great.
Yes.
Well, we're almost out of time on this fireside chat, but I would love to hear, just as a conclusion, where do you see AI governance going next?
I see AI governance becoming front and center in the coming years. The EU Act is just the beginning. There will be many municipalities, many countries that will have regulatory structures in place that demand that your AI system be governed in some form or fashion. And I would just say that you would be better off if you already have something in place instead of scrambling at the last minute to put some things together. And so I think having an AI governance foundation, again, starting with it early, prepares you for the AI governance regulatory challenges that lie ahead.
Yeah. And it's really like a competitive advantage almost then for those clients, those companies that can get ahead now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you think about the EU, they will fine you a substantial amount if you're not in
Yeah.
compliance. And so
Yes. Yeah.
that should be an incentive in and of itself.
Agreed. Well, we know
Yes.
for a fact that ABS is on the right track because of the amazing work that you have done there with AI governance and Dataiku. So thank you so much for your time today, Harold, and really enjoyed chatting with you. And thank you all for watching our fireside chat.
Yes, thank you, Triveni, and thank you, Dataiku.